Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans, and today we will be doing a live stream review of the new Jehovah's Witness brochure, Enjoy Life Forever. This isn't just any brochure. This is the first 3 lessons of the new Bible study program that was announced at the 2020 annual meeting. I thought it would be a good idea to review it, but to help me review it, I thought I would select from the very finest YouTubers, influencers, and general online personalities. And so, thankfully, they agreed to join me. We have here Rudy, otherwise known as X-Cult Baby. We have Jana Montero.
Hello.
And we have filmmaker, journalist, Andrew Gold. How are you?
Hello, good. Thanks for having me on the show. How are you doing?
Not bad at all.
I want to know why you hyped us up like that. Why would you do that to us?
I like to big up my guests. What can I say?
But now what if I say something stupid?
Well, that's on you. That's on you, Rudy.
That'll ruin your reputation and mine. Because you said I was one of the best.
Willing to take that risk. Andrew, by the way, is our guinea pig because he's never been a Jehovah's Witness. So we're going to be reviewing material that has been written with someone like Andrew in mind. In fact, quite possibly specifically with Andrew in mind. We don't know how the Holy Spirit works. But it will be interesting to see how Andrew responds to this brochure and whether he finds it compelling. Andrew, are you in the mood for being indoctrinated into the Jehovah's Witness religion?
I might be converted. That would be a big surprise, wouldn't it? You know,
it would. That would be a twist.
The last few weeks since you came on my podcast, I've had loads of people from the ex-Jehovah's Witness community getting in touch, and also loads of people who are still in it and are quite angry, of course. But it's been really brilliant, like meeting all these ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and there's like so many similar stories with lots of other religions and things. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this.
Indeed, I can foresee an interesting conversation. And as I was saying off air, the fascinating thing is that the Enjoy Life Forever is being released as a book and a brochure. The book is 60 lessons. The brochure that we're going to be considering is the first 3 lessons. They've released these in brochure form so that basically it's not too expensive if the Bible study bails early. So that they're not wasting an entire book, they're just wasting a brochure, which is quite smart, actually. Let's give it to them. So 3 lessons.
Google.
Indeed. They're anticipating the Google search. So 3 lessons from 60 is actually 5%. So there are currently 331 watching our live stream. Presumably there will be hundreds, maybe even thousands more who will watch after the fact. You will all be, if you watch the whole thing, doing 5% of a Jehovah's Witness Bible study. You're welcome.
I wish you told me that before I agreed to do it.
Is this traumatic for you guys?
Low key.
It certainly has the potential to induce trauma, but that's why I've selected this stellar panel, so that we can blunt the trauma somewhat with some humour and with some wit and intelligence, for which all of you have been selected.
Yay.
So anyway, without further ado, let's bring up said indoctrination manual. Here we go. Enjoy life forever. Any thoughts? I'd be especially interested in a non-male perspective here. Any thoughts on the cover art? Is it just me, or is this sort of the inevitable product of a group of men kind of signing off on what the book ought to look like?
I'm feeling pretty masculine today, so I don't know if I technically count as a non-male perspective.
Sure.
But as soon as I saw this, I was like, brown-haired white dude, got it. Yep. I mean, that in their minds, that's average. I mean, if you want to go real full global average, this would definitely be like an Asian woman, but you know.
It looks really Mormon to me, honestly.
Yeah.
And also, if I were in a paradise Earth, can I just not have some relaxing clothes? Why do I have to wear trousers?
Can I have walking gear? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. If I was in paradise, I would be dressing ridiculously. I would be walking around like a goddess. I would be like in like clothes that look like a bunch of really long sheets, and I have like
Literally
little
Comic-Con every day.
right. It's like if everybody's perfect and nobody's gonna ogle me anymore, or at least after the first 1,000 years, nobody's gonna ogle me anymore. I'm just gonna be a nudist, straight up. Why not?
That's interesting that you shared that. Thank you for keeping it highbrow.
I mean, if the weather's always perfect, who needs clothes?
Indeed. I mean, I'm eyeing those mountains in the background. I think if it were me, I'd want my fleece. I'd want some waterproofs. I'd want my backpack, thermos flask. Let's face it, you're entering a survival situation here. That road looks fairly navigable at the moment, but we don't know where we'll end up. Anyway, we're getting lost here. It's
like Christian Bale to me. Do you think it looks like Christian? That's Christian Bale.
Because
Oh
I'm
my
bad.
god!
Christian Bale.
So Christian Bale there heading off into forever. Introductory Bible lesson. So let me actually first skip straight to the end, because the way it was released at the annual meeting was that you use the back, you use the front and you use the back, and the back has been laid out like the back of a tract. So this is supposed to be used when you're presenting it. So is it possible to enjoy life forever? Would you say yes, no, or maybe? It seems like quite a leading question.
Yeah, I also like, what other options are there besides yes, no, or maybe? Why did you have to write that down? Like, I feel like they could have come up with an answer, one of those three answers, fully on their own. Yeah.
I think, statistically speaking, the chance of anything at all that's a living organism living forever, would probably be a zero, and would probably merit, from at least a scientific standpoint, a no.
Hang on, because this is funny. Sorry, because last week on my podcast, I had a guy who's a scientist, a biologist, and his whole thing is about how you can live forever. So it's really funny that you sent this to me just after, and I'm seeing, can you enjoy life forever? But it's obviously from a totally different perspective. But there are apparently some animals that are biologically, supposedly immortal in that. So like a tortoise doesn't actually age.
Lobsters?
Maybe
Greenland
lobsters.
shark.
Possibly, right? So their chances of dying each year don't go up as they get older like ours do. It's just that if something might happen after a few hundred years that might make them die.
If you're a Greenland shark or a lobster, you could actually answer with some certainty yes here.
No.
But presumably the brochure wasn't written with those species in mind.
I would say it specifically says enjoy life forever, not just live forever. Enjoy life forever. It's like, yeah, I live forever, but life is hell.
How enjoyable is it at the bottom of the Arctic Ocean? You'd have to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, what the Bible says, the righteous will possess the earth and they will live forever upon it. That's actually a restorationist text in Psalms that's speaking poetically about the Jewish people being repatriated in the Promised Land. It's not literally talking. It's interesting how Jehovah's Witnesses will make strange texts they'll say, oh, that's metaphorical. But when a metaphorical text says something that fits with their narrative, they'll say, oh, that's literal. And that's what they're doing here.
Like, no, now it's prophetic, because I think that's what I want it to say. Wait, stop putting it in context. Just leave it.
What that can mean for you, a happy, peaceful future with family and friends, enjoying life not just for a short time, but forever. Now, this is very interesting in the context of shunning. They mention family quite a few times in this brochure. At least, I'm sure I'm not the only one on this panel who can testify to the effect that this religion has on family, and it's not necessarily a positive one.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, if my family considers me family still, I'm not gonna be there, so
I wouldn't even know if they did.
yeah.
Is that sentence not a paradox in itself? A happy, peaceful future with family. I think that's impossible for anyone.
And presumably many people will have fresh memories of the Christmas meal and what have you. So yeah, bit of skepticism there. Can we really believe what the Bible promises? Yes. To see why, please consider the evidence presented in the 3 lessons in this brochure. They are entitled, How Can the Bible Help You? The Bible Gives Hope, and Can You Trust the Bible? Those are the lessons we're going to be looking at. Any thoughts on the art? Sorry, go on.
In response to that last bit, I wanted to share something very cringy, which is that in my senior year of high school, 17-year-old me wrote a persuasive essay about why you can trust what the Bible says. And I basically just used the not my book of Bible stories, the Bible Teach book as a reference. It was real cringe. And I read it out loud to my classmates while they all sat awkwardly.
I have a very similar story.
This is becoming a therapy session. Go on, Jan.
I wrote a story of right after Armageddon, where using a lot of scriptures from Revelation, where a little girl was, because she was innocent, she was saved from Armageddon, but her parents were dead, and there was carnage literally everywhere, and it was very Toni Morris style Armageddon.
Oh, you went there, did you?
Okay. That's so messed up. I had dreams like that too. Messed up.
Speaking of messed up, we're here to review a brochure that's called Enjoy Life Forever. And let's go to the beginning. This is like the how-to section. Interesting that they're very keen that the student study with a teacher. This isn't something where you can just get the book, study it yourself, and you're suddenly an expert on living forever and or what the Bible teaches. Surprisingly, you need to have a Jehovah's Witness with you to guide you through. And then we have a chart giving us, with A, B, C, D, all the letters there, indicating what the process is. Lots of it involves answering questions, but there's also a component here, watch the videos. So this is a new thing. Obviously, the audio-visual technology is Watchtower's new plaything. They're quite enthusiastic to use their videos any opportunity they get. And they've thought, let's put a video or several videos in each lesson. What's the worst that could happen? Now, I've lined up the videos that Bible students are supposed to watch because they're only like between 1 and 3 minutes long. And I thought it might be afternoon. Andrew's what? Damn you, Andrew. I wanted to get a raw reaction.
I know, but I've got my thoughts gathered now.
Oh, you've gathered your thoughts. Okay, fair enough.
Oh, you watched them already?
Yeah, they were great.
Oh,
no.
Great.
They're going to be surprised to me.
This whole format of the way you're supposed to do this with reading the thing and then doing the videos and answering the questions reminds me of the new job training I just had for Subway.
That's a really good point, though, isn't it? That's what I've been thinking about this whole thing, because I grew up as a Jewish person, right? But quite secular, but we had to do all the Jewish stuff. And the funny thing about Judaism is it's sort of the opposite to Jehovah's Witnesses in that we don't recruit. It's very exclusive. It's very hard to get in. It's like, we don't want...
I have tried many times to become Jewish, and this explains why I failed. Yeah, okay.
You'd have to marry me.
It's not just that I wasn't a very good Jew. There are obstacles.
You'd have to study. You'd have to study loads as well. So it's really funny for me to see this old Bible stuff, and it's similar sort of stuff to what I grew up looking at, but much more enticing and marketing and modern, and sort of it's like a modern, as you say, like a Subway promotion or marketing, whatever it might be. It's really quite impressive, some of it.
Yeah, I'd want a hearty Italian version. Hearty Italian with the What sauce? What sauce would I go? They used to call it Southwest sauce. Now they call it something else.
It's called Southwest Ranch. You know, if
Okay.
you come to the United
Ranch,
States,
yeah.
you come to Ohio, you come to my very small, obscure town, I will make you that sandwich, Lloyd.
Well, I was going to say I'd like a ranch Bible study, whatever that means. A slightly spicy one.
A spicy ranch Bible study. Excellent.
How can the Bible help you? I have a few thoughts here. I've highlighted here many people. They use this language. It's overtly manipulative. It's basically trying to bully people into agreeing with what they consider many people to think. Many people find that the Bible not only helps them answer life's big questions, but also gives them practical advice for daily living. Do you think that the Bible can help anyone you know? So another leading question and quite manipulative wording.
Like, you start out by saying it's helpful, and then the question is, you think it can help people? It's like, yeah, I guess. Like, you just said it was helpful, so I guess the answer to that is yes.
And a lot of other people think it's really helpful. So if you don't, you're the odd one out, basically.
That's essentially the rationale that they use quite predominantly in this brochure, including the way they use the videos, which we'll come to. The first question there, what are some questions that the Bible answers? Apparently, the Bible answers the question.
Oop, you're glitching out a little, Lloyd.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. I do have poor internet. Okay, I do have poor internet where I am. This isn't the bunker, so thank you for letting me know there, Rudy. Apparently, the Bible answers the question, how did life begin? Why are we here? Why do innocent people suffer? What happens when a person dies? If everyone wants peace, why is there so much war? What will happen to the earth in the future? I think those are all things that, to varying degrees people wonder, but inevitably we're just going to get the Jehovah's Witness interpretation of what the Bible says on those issues rather than actual definitive object.
Oop, you're glitching out a little bit again.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, thank you for letting me know. So those are all questions that anyone who reads the Bible, regardless of a denomination, can have any number of opinions on, not necessarily just the Jehovah's Witness version.
Yeah, I always grew up as a witness being like, why doesn't everybody come to the same conclusion about the Bible? It's so obvious. It's right there. I'm reading the scriptures. It's pretty obvious what it means. How can anybody interpret it any differently?
In my pioneer brain, I'm thinking that I know you're supposed to use the back as your presentation, but I feel like I would use that sort of like, which one of these questions would you like an answer to, and like offer it in that way, to see which one of those they've asked themselves, and then hook, line, and sinker.
Kind of.
You have another reference there to families in the second paragraph. Apparently the Bible teaches families how to be truly happy. This from a religion that literally teaches that families ought to be broken apart if someone stops believing. So quite a bit of irony stroke hypocrisy there. And then a little disclaimer at the bottom. This publication does not replace the Bible. Rather, it encourages you to examine the Bible for yourself. But you're not really examining the Bible for yourself if you're supposed to have a Jehovah's Witness do it with you.
Right. If you're examining the Bible for yourself, you just read the Bible.
Yeah.
And your teacher will get annoyed if you read the scripture above or below the scripture that is intended for you to read.
Right. It's like, no context. Just read this little bit.
But it's funny because the Bible's not a very attractive thing to read, is it? I mean, especially the way that it's written, and just the book itself is rarely. So that's why this is sort of a replacement, I suppose, isn't it? Because it's so nicely laid out, and I can imagine being a child myself and being really taken in by this. Whereas the Bible, I can't be taken in by that. That's so boring and dry, isn't it, compared to this.
Really. I mean, I was super bored as a Jehovah's Witness trying to read the Bible every day. It was impossible. But now that I'm an atheist, it's a lot more interesting because I don't have to like censor out all the bad stuff as I'm reading it.
Right. Is it interesting to read? Is it interesting to read now?
Yes, it is, because like I had this revelation once while reading the passage in Exodus about the 10 plagues in Egypt. I was like, the Bible clearly is showing that they think the Egyptian gods are real. They just think that the Hebrew God is more powerful. But this book is not monotheistic. This is not monotheistic at all. They totally believe that those are real. And that was interesting because it's like I've been fed this version of it for so long. And now that I'm actually reading it for myself and just examining it as is, it's like, that was totally incorrect. Totally incorrect.
I actually thought it was also really interesting with this brochure that the scripture, they inserted parentheses into the scripture instead of just quoting the scripture.
Right.
When the scripture
Yeah, the
itself, ...
yeah.
Well, no, not that, but inserting everything in the Bible. That's not.
Oh, okay.
All scripture.
Oh, yeah.
God and beneficial of teaching, for approving, for setting things straight, for disciplining in righteousness. Nonsense, But there's no reason for it to have everything in the Bible. Like, they're seriously dumbing it down. Like,
that's a good question, Andrew. It's not necessarily aimed at children, although children will be expected to study this.
Yep.
But it is aimed at people who, how can I put this politely, have not been blessed with the ability to educate themselves so well. I think that's fair to say. That's accurate, is it?
Yeah, no, they dumb their stuff way down. Like I knew a 9-year-old who read the full Bible teach book and got baptized. It's simple enough for a 9-year-old to read and understand, but like they can read back the answers essentially that people are looking for. But yeah.
So we have the first dig deeper section. Consider how the Bible has helped people, how you can enjoy reading it, and why it is good to get help to understand it. And then it says the Bible is like a powerful light. All right, okay. We can use the Bible to show us how to make good decisions and to help us see what lies ahead. Now, I'm obviously an atheist, so I would take issue with that. But even if I weren't an atheist, there are lots of people who consider the Bible to be God's inspired word. They just don't think that in 1919, Jesus invisibly chose the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society to be his one and only channel of communication with mankind. You can believe the Bible and value the Bible and think the Bible was written by God, doesn't get you to being a Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, most of the people I know who believe in the Bible to a greater or lesser degree are not Jehovah's Witnesses, never have been, never will be, and they know their Bible well. So
we come to section 4. The Bible can answer our questions, and we need to watch a video. So at this point, I need to do some wizardry with my share screen. And I'll try and
try all this.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I haven't paid you to say that at all.
Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful put together. Like you are like a wizard. You're just it's like Minority Report.
Thank you. A check will be in the post. So we go to our first video, and this is what we're supposed to watch studying this brochure. Can everyone hear the sound?
Not yet.
Okay.
Good thing I watched it before.
Oh,
I'm going to stop it then.
I'm kind of okay with that. I really don't want to watch this.
That's as much as you're willing to watch, is it? Right, let me do that again.
External woman on.
There was something I needed to tick and I didn't tick it. So let me do this again. Video 1, there we go. Share. Okay, let's do that again.
There we go.
Okay.
My whole life, I wanted to be a teacher. It was very gratifying. But yet, there was something that was empty in my life. I would see children that were disabled, not because they had done anything wrong, they were just born that way. And I thought to myself, that doesn't make sense to me. God is a God of love. I know God could fix all these things. Why hasn't he? And then it was a child in my school that successfully got me the answers to my questions. She asked me the question, do you know I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses? Would you like to know more about Jehovah's Witnesses? And I thought to myself, I do. I really do. Why don't you come over and visit me someday and tell me about Jehovah's Witnesses? When she came back the next week, I sat there and listened, and she taught me things. She taught me how to look into my own Bible to find the answers to questions. And all of a sudden, I'm getting answer after answer after answer, which for 25 years, I couldn't find these answers anywhere. And it was amazing to me.
Okay, so that was the first video. I have a few comments on this, and I've already done like a rebuttal to this particular video, but I'm interested to get your thoughts.
It was boring as shit. Literally, just like the brochure so far has just been like, the Bible can help you find answers to questions. It reiterated in several different ways the same thought, and then that whole video was just the same thing, except being reiterated by the anecdote of a woman talking slowly.
A Bethelite who apparently is no longer a school teacher because she became a Jehovah's Witness. I'm a little bit dubious as to what she was teaching, because as far as I can see, she was writing the words cat and bat on the blackboard, so
And they were much
probably nothing too advanced.
Yeah.
You should already know how to spell those words.
Things that rhyme. I found that video really amazing, actually, because I was trying to get to I was trying to really think as an outsider, as you say, like, what do I think about this? What's interesting about what's happening here? And the production quality and stuff is actually really good, and they got proper actors and money presumably behind this, so it's really good.
Oh, not actors.
No.
Everybody
she's a
in every
Bethelite.
video is a Jehovah's
Money,
Witness.
yes.
They literally went
but
into
they-
an office and said, Deirdre, can you do an interview for us? Yeah.
But they acted fine, is what I mean. But
Yeah.
what is fascinating? So at the very beginning, she asked this question, which I was just fascinated by, which is, why are there disabled people? That was an example of the many things she was wondering, but it was the main one. And I thought, oh wow, I'm going to learn about what the Jehovah's Witness stance is on disabled people, and it's going to either be that there is no real answer, or there is one, and it's totally unpalatable to put in a video like that because they didn't answer it.
They didn't. They didn't
really
answer
strange.
it at all.
No.
She's like, now I know everything. Now I know the answer. I was like, well, I don't. And I'm reading this and watching this video for the precise reason that I want to know the answer. And I don't now.
What's interesting as well is they're obviously relating a historical story. Again, it's a Bethelite who apparently joined the organization, I'm assuming in the 60s, 70s. They're studying the truth that leads to eternal life, and they're reenacting doing that with witnesses today. If you studied that book today, you'd be an apostate, because it's teaching things that Jehovah's Witnesses no longer believe. They had to release a new version of it in 1981 to get rid of the references to 1975. They were teaching about the generation that will not pass away, the ones that were around to witness the events of 1914. There was the faithful slave teaching, which changed in 2012. There's all sorts of teachings where if you studied that today and based all of your beliefs on it, you'd be an apostate. So that's the irony for me. And also the fact that, clearly there's kind of a hidden or not so hidden message there, that if you're a school teacher who does become a Jehovah's Witness, you won't be a school teacher for long, because what's she doing now? She's in Bethel. She's not inspiring young people and teaching them anything meaningful. She's just serving an organization. So,
What is the answer to why Jehovah's Witnesses believe that some people are disabled?
Satan, sin.
imperfection, Adamic sin and imperfection. So these are, when Eve ate the fruit, she committed mankind to imperfection So there are varying degrees of imperfection.
And as the years have gone on, we've gotten more and more imperfect.
We're all loaves of bread baked in a dented pan.
That's
God.
an actual
That's a real illustration they use.
illustration from the book that this is replacing.
But I
It's just
think
sort of random.
the more I think about it, the stupider it is, because I'm just like, I don't care. It's bread. As long as it's cooked through, it's still bread. And that's my approach to humanity now, is like, yeah, there's no such thing as a perfect loaf of bread. Who cares? It all tastes like bread, and bread is awesome.
So I mentioned earlier that a lot of their rationale seems to be lots of other people believe this, you should believe it too. And they're using a similar trick here. One woman found that the Bible provided answers to questions that had troubled her for many years. In the video, what sorts of questions did this woman have? How did studying the Bible help her? The message being, she derived benefit, you will too, basically.
So then they also teach that after Armageddon, it will take 1,000 years for us to our bodies to go back to being perfect. So all of those maladies that people suffer from today will be corrected. So
including the malady of being gay.
Oh.
Don't forget that. Don't forget that. That's a big one.
Some interesting small print there for Andrew in our version of the Bible study.
I think it's just. Oh, sorry. I think it's just funny. The last thing I wanted to say about this part is that they always emphasize that they have answers. That doesn't mean that they're like the right answer. It might be a satisfying answer for that person at that time. That doesn't mean that it's actually correct. You know, like
that's
just
actually
because
a really
they have
good point. Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's the correct explanation.
Very true. Very true. And you're not really encouraged to fact check anything that's presented in this book or in previous books. Again, this is material that can and will be superseded by other material further down the line once the things that are said in this book turn out to be nonsense or become outdated. So, yeah, it's all cyclical, unfortunately. We get down to point 5. You can enjoy the Bible. This video, Andrew, you say you've seen these already. I was properly cringing during this video. I just thought it was such an awful. I mean, again, this is a Bible study course. Okay, the whole point of this. Thank you to Lisa for the super chat. By the way, I'm really sorry. I'm not keeping an eye on the super chats, but I do really appreciate them. Thank you.
Super chat.
I'll.
That a little bit there.
Sorry. Okay, am I back?
Yes,
am I
you're
back?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said something vaguely insulting, I think, and it cut you out.
Okay, that's just as well. So 60 lessons, and we're only in lesson 1, and you're thinking, if you're going to be showing people videos to entice them to continue the lesson, you're going to pick the best videos you can find that make the most compelling arguments. And this is what they're showing people. Just bear with me one moment.
I mean, or just like the first one, just don't answer. And then people keep watching in hopes that you'll answer the first question that they got hooked on.
Yeah, but that won't be until like chapter 50. When you're ready to handle that information because you're already sufficiently doctrinated.
So this is the second video that millions of people who study this book will be required to watch.
Sometimes I get words mixed up and backwards, so it can be kind of challenging. So, do I like reading? Not really.
I don't know. I find books not interesting and boring.
And then I'll just get completely distracted.
Have to mentally prepare myself to read because there's so many other things you could be doing.
I don't enjoy reading, but I do like reading the Bible. For me, it's more than a book.
It's definitely worth it.
So
some people may say it's not relevant for today.
Oh, it's still
but
continuing.
when you look
It's still
into
going
it,
on. Okay.
there's things you can learn from all the time.
And it's helped me to think before I speak.
I find that I'm actually more concerned with other people, their well-being, how they're doing, and looking out for them.
I think Bible reading's made me a better person.
It gives me a little push for the day.
My favorite book in the Bible would probably be the Psalms because it's easy for me to understand and it's really interesting to me.
For young people, they can go through jw.org and get the Bible, several different copies of the Bible right there.
We'll type in that certain scripture and there'll be articles about it.
Another thing I'm loving is the new videos, an introduction to this book of the Bible. It just takes 2 or 3 minutes and you can understand what you're about to read, that book, and that makes a huge difference.
I go by topics or what interests me.
I look for something that's interesting, that touches me directly. It just becomes an enjoyable process.
It's very, very relevant and it's very important, and you can find happiness. I mean, who doesn't want that?
It's like an SNL skit, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was so painful.
And oh my goodness, only one of those teenagers was like even remotely enthusiastic.
They all hate reading. They're all pictured in front of loads of books. Right? And is it just me, or did they put it in black and white so that you didn't notice that all of them were people of color?
Maybe.
Kind of weird.
Maybe. They've
The
definitely.
guy was white.
Which one? The
Yeah.
one boy?
But there was
Yeah.
one white guy and one person of color. They were very. The thing is, they reminded me.
It was like
I don't know much about
portraiture.
Jehovah's. They were very Mormon-y. In like they reminded. That's what I imagine Mormons looking like. Just so clean shaven and so like preppy. And it was interesting, as you say, that the real focus on don't read. Like, oh, but reading's bad and I don't get it either. Don't worry about looking up any facts or anything. Don't worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
Just look at our thing and we'll tell you the truth. It was real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to read anything else.
It felt like they were telling their target audience who they wanted their target audience to be. If you're watching this video as someone who does enjoy reading, you're going to be immediately disenfranchised from this whole process because you're going to be thinking, I don't want to be like them. I really enjoy reading. I really enjoy taking in knowledge. And then they switch. They do a 180. Oh yeah, reading's really boring. The Bible, though, the Bible's just really exciting to read. I love reading the Bible. Can't get enough of it. It's a real page
You're saying
turner.
that way too enthusiastically. It was
Yeah.
more like, oh yeah, the Bible. I do enjoy reading the Bible though. The Bible's cool to read. Yeah.
The Bible's really,
One
really
girl said
thrilling.
that, she has to read it and to start her day off right. And I was like, no.
The-
The thing is, though, that can be true for a lot of people, but it's not because of the contents. It's because I'm doing a spiritual activity. I think this is going to help, so it's going to help in some sort of placebo effect kind of way. It doesn't matter what you're reading. If it's like, I'm reading this for my mental, emotional, spiritual health benefit, it's part of my morning routine,
Like
and of
people
course
do
it's going to make you feel
affirmations.
good. Right. Of course it's going to make you feel good. It's part of your morning routine that you do to benefit yourself.
But then they don't like reading. They could literally read anything. Comic books, anything. Cool things they could read. But no, what they want to read is about Lot in the wilderness with his 2 daughters. Like,
Getting an echo.
Yeah,
Sorry,
here
bear
we
with me
go.
one moment.
Gotcha.
Should be fixed now. Go on.
Echo. Yeah.
Yep, fixed.
Fixed. Yeah.
Oh gosh, where were we?
Yeah. Which Bible verses are you talking about? Are you talking about, the generic kind of advice of Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, or are you talking about some of the really horrendous stories from the Old Testament?
I can
You're
tell you
gonna
right now, I was never inspired by reading genealogies.
the son of Hezekiah, the son of Abed. No, absolutely not.
Or instructions on how to assemble the tabernacle. Can't say that was a huge page turner for me.
But the thing is, they make it so that you're supposed to make it a page turner, even if it's boring as shit. You have to find some meaning in it, otherwise you're not reading it right.
And then is your family really spiritual if they didn't like actually sit there and build like a small model of it together for family study?
So you again have this, many people enjoy reading the Bible. Many people enjoy reading the Bible, so you should too. Why do they now feel differently despite not liking reading? Why do they now feel differently about reading the Bible? So there must be something unique. You're just missing it. So they're kind of making people feel as though if they're not enthusiastic about the Bible, they damn well should be, before they've even established concrete reasons why people should enjoy reading the Bible.
Also, this picture is coercive in that you see this woman has the 2 children. She's cradling the baby. Clearly, she has a lot going on in her life. But look, she's making time for the study. So Jade should have no excuses for Nita to not make time for her study.
God, I'm not sure Andrew will get the Jade and Nita reference, but
No, I'm nodding and smiling.
So again, you have there in this section, many have found that discussing it with others is helpful. That they're just sticking with this. We think that you should feel this way. We think that you should have this opinion about the Bible and Bible teaching. So we're going to tell you essentially how you should feel about the Bible and about what we're saying.
Every time I read the many people thing, it's like, okay, but what are the other people saying and why?
Yeah.
Why isn't everybody getting this?
Some people say studying the Bible is a waste of time. Well, it depends. I mean, I actually quite enjoy studying the Bible now that I'm doing it unfiltered and listening to what scholars and archaeologists have to say. It's actually quite interesting learning about the Bible.
Yeah. Saying some people say it's just a full straw man. Like, because anybody who says this isn't present to actually say why they think studying the Bible is a waste of time. So
Yeah. No, it doesn't say anything like some people say the Bible is full of falsehoods and that we're trying to hoodwink you and make you believe. They don't say that. They just say people say that studying the Bible is a waste of time, which, as you say yourself, Lloyd, doesn't really prove whether you believe in it or not, does it? It's not necessarily a waste of time. You can learn a lot as a historian from the Bible.
Indeed. So we have a summary there. This is the take-home message from this lesson. The Bible offers advice for daily life, answers important questions, and gives people comfort and hope. There are some review questions there. There's an explore section, including basically Watchtower and Awake articles and videos that people should check out to expand the points that are being discussed. I find this odd. Lesson completed on. What's the point or relevance of putting a date in there? I don't understand.
Maybe it's to better keep track of your Bible studies or something like that.
Probably, but it's not like it's a major life event, though, is it?
Well, they think it is.
True.
That's sort of a little bit like what marketing apps and things do. Like if you get on Duolingo to learn a language or something, there's always it's like you've got little set times and goals and things. So I think that's part of the sort of gives you a dopamine injection. Like I completed it on this date. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's their equivalent of a 2-week streak on Duolingo.
So if I put in a date, I get a dopamine injection.
I think you'd feel like, okay, I did something and this was the date I did it. And next time you look at it, you think, oh, what did I do since then? And you're sort of active. You're getting involved in it, even simple things like writing a date. I think that's all part of keeping you
I will put some dates in and I will report back.
That
Please
lovely JW guilt. Oh, it's been a whole 2 weeks since I've been able to make time for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good point. So, lesson 2, the Bible gives hope, as emphasized by this picture of a field. People around the world deal with problems that cause them to feel sadness, anxiety, and even pain. Have you ever faced a situation that made you feel those things? Lots of the pain and anxiety and sadness that I feel actually stems from the Jehovah's Witness religion, but I can't speak for everyone.
I know toddlers that have experienced sadness, anxiety, and pain. What kind of question is this? It's like, have you ever been sad?
Right. Do you breathe and occasionally blink?
Have you ever exhaled air?
I really didn't the person who's studying this' answer was no. I'd be like, all right, cool. So
You should be teaching me, actually.
you might be a sociopath. Maybe see a therapist.
So that's the introduction to The Bible Gives Hope. Very profound. Section 1, or question 1, how does the Bible give hope? And then it says, the Bible not only explains why the world is filled with problems, but also shares the good news that these problems are temporary and will soon be gone. I would put an asterisk there, because God is soon going to slaughter billions of people. That's ultimately the solution that they kind of miss out at this point, curiously, in the study.
You might be one of the problems that will be gone.
Right.
Is the asterisk that's missing.
Indeed. Although at least I'm taking people, currently 739 people, I'm conducting a Bible study with them all, so I'm surely not that bad.
Do you get people who are still...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, you go on.
I was just saying, I love how this also, again, doesn't actually answer these questions at all. It just says the Bible gives the answer, doesn't say what that answer is yet, really. Like, it just says there's problems, later there won't be problems. Like, that is nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah.
And
Trust
honestly,
us.
I'm just like baffled by the scriptures being so abbreviated. Like normally they would take excerpts, but there would be almost full block text before in the books. Like I remember sitting in Revelation book going scripture by scripture. That's literally what we did. Now there's like 3 or 4 words. Like they are literally, this is the epitome of cherry picking.
Yeah.
I'm interested how you feel about that, Andrew, because, you know, how does this look to an outsider? I mean, if I were signing up for a Bible study course, I would want to feel like I was studying the Bible. And Jana makes a great point. If you're going to snip the quotes quite so enthusiastically, you're kind of giving the impression that the Bible's almost a secondary consideration.
Which they were very careful earlier in brackets to say that was not the case. This is not a replacement for the Bible. This is just a supplement that we have decided to create. Yeah,
Indeed.
it's. But then at the same time, they're sort of contradicting themselves a lot, because then there was the video where they were saying, you know, do you like to read? We don't. So don't worry about the Bible. Just read our stuff. So they have simplified it. And on the one hand, you know, so I had to read Hebrew as a kid, and a whole long boring thing, right? I can read Hebrew now, all these years later, which is insane, right? I don't know what it means, but I can read it. So I'm almost, and I guess maybe do you feel this a little bit like you want to say to the kids or whoever learning through this now, you want to say like, oh, you don't know how good you guys have it. When I was younger, I had to read the whole Bible back to front. Do you feel a little bit of that? No.
I remember like people older than me being like, remember when the conventions were like a whole week long and stuff like that? Right. But like, I don't think that witnesses want to openly acknowledge how dumbed down it's getting.
Yeah, I feel like I would be embarrassed almost, because the one thing that what kept me in so long was how convoluted the explanations were. Like, you had to turn to this part of the Bible and turn to this. It was like a little treasure hunt of information that you felt like you were actually doing research. And now it's
but you were the guys that left. That's the thing. So if you guys were the ones who enjoyed doing real research and really looking through things and combing through for details, you're like journalists in a sense. And from that video before, that's not who they're trying to attract, because they know that you guys leave. So you guys are going to be the percentage of people who are much more open-minded and much more out about taking in all the information. The problem when there's a hole in the logic, if you look too closely, you're going to find it. So I think they don't want people looking too closely. That's what this is telling me anyway.
I agree with that, but I also think that they, you know, when you indoctrinate somebody really early on, it doesn't matter how good their critical thinking skills are or how logical they are. Like my dad, who is a Jehovah's Witness elder, or at least was, I think he got removed as an elder when I got disfellowshipped, but he is like one of the smartest people I know. He's a very logical dude. He was made me read the dictionary practically as a kid. And, you know, as long as he thinks that this is in-depth research, as long as he believes that it's the truth and whatever information he comes across has to be interpreted to make this true, it doesn't really matter how good you are at researching if you are stuck on the idea of, yeah, but if I come across anything that conflicts with what I already think, that can't be true. Or maybe I'm interpreting it wrong.
Do you think your father has cognitive bias, like a very strong cognitive bias of some
yes.
sort? Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think he could not have cognitive bias, being as intelligent and research oriented as he is and still teaching and believing this crap.
But Andrew, do you think that this would, at the point, because, you know, it says this is not to replace your Bible, do you think at this point, with how limited the scriptural influence has been, do you think you would start being like, well, what have I really gotten myself into at this point?
In what sense? What?
From, because her father's an elder, so of course he would have a completely different perspective. And from that inside way, they'd say, oh, well, you know, babes drink milk. And so, of course, we're going to dumb it down a little bit because they're just being eased into the meatier stuff. But how would you feel?
Well, I mean, as a child, I would definitely prefer, like, if I was younger and they were trying to indoctrinate me with this stuff, I would prefer this much more. And I know that because, like I say, I had the boring equivalent. I had the sort of, although admittedly it was in another language, most of it, right? But you did get bits in English. And the more I saw words like thou and thy and all this sort of old-fashioned stuff, the more my brain was just like, oh, I wonder what the football game's going to be tomorrow. I was just like looking out the window. I know. Whereas this, it's like, look at all these golden letters and look at the lovely images and how, oh, it's easy. You just have a nice life forever, do you? You have the beautiful weather, and which, by the way, I lived in a city that was known as the city of eternal spring, right? In Colombia, Medellin. I lived there for a year. Right, beautiful weather. It's like this heaven they're portraying, right? It was like 25 degrees, I think it was, every single day. Oh, you don't know that? I don't know what
Celsius,
that is.
Yeah.
I'll let you do the conversion.
But all I'm saying, I'm going
on believe that is wonderful.
Oh yeah, go on. Yeah, do the conversion. What is it?
I'm joking. I haven't really done the
I'm
conversion.
literally going to do it.
Oh, come on.
77 degrees for us Americans.
Okay, yeah, beautiful.
Right. Beautiful, sunny, really nice. And after about 3 months, I was really bored. I was just like, I can't. Oh, well, I wonder what the weather's like. Oh, it's sunny and lovely again, you know? And I think that's a good metaphor for life a little bit, because this heaven that they're portraying sounds really boring.
Although it's not really heaven that they're pitching here, it's more paradise. But I take your point.
It's exactly this. It doesn't really make a difference. It's the same, but they just...
That segues nicely with the next paragraph. What kind of future does the Bible describe? You'll see at the end there I've highlighted, the Bible promises that humans will be able to enjoy life forever in paradise on earth. I'm here to tell you, the Bible does no such thing. As I've mentioned repeatedly in my videos, the word paradise appears 4 times in the entire Bible, which is interesting if that's the main message. If that's God's master plan for mankind, you'd think he'd want to use the word paradise a bit more than that. And of those 4 times, even the organization claims only one of them to refer to a literal paradise earth. The rest are supposed to refer to heaven in some way. So it can't be said that the Bible promises that humans will be able... The main message of the New Testament of Christianity, when you read the Bible again on its own terms, is, oh, we die and we go to heaven, at least from a Christian perspective. So that message there, I mean, from an organization that calls itself the truth and accuses apostates of lying, this sentence here that I've highlighted is just an outright lie.
They don't even cite a scripture for that sentence.
No.
It's just a claim.
Yeah. And then you have, how can you build up your trust in the hope the Bible gives? As you study the Bible, you'll be able to decide for yourself whether you believe what it says about the future.
But you'd be wrong if you don't believe it.
We kind of are counting on you to decide the way we've decided, though. So dig deeper. It's time to dig deeper. Examine some of the conditions that the Bible promises for the future. See how the hope the Bible gives is helping people today. And then we have this table. Sorry, go on, Janet.
Can I just say how disgusting? I know that the photo is supposed to be heartwarming, but how absolutely just upsetting and emotionally manipulative that photo is. I've had a family member lose their 5-year-old to brain cancer, and to see that picture of a little baby in the hospital bed and then the mom hugging him like he's just been resurrected is just so manipulative.
What point are they trying to make?
What they're saying is, so basically in this illustration, you can see the child is on a hospital bed, and the message seems to be the child's died. I mean, you know, speaking as a parent, losing your child is like the very worst thing that can happen to you. And they're saying, but don't worry, the child's being resurrected and everything's fine. So this is supposed to be one of the promises that the Bible gives people.
In heaven, in paradise.
No, so they're resurrected onto a paradise earth. And if they're gay, they'll get resurrected as gay.
And the mum has to go with now to paradise.
Okay, so this paradise is on earth, where we live right now. All the bad people get murdered. And then all the
nearly 8 billion people have been slaughtered to make way for Jehovah's Witnesses.
Are left. And then
the Jehovah's Witnesses that are left have to clean up the bodies.
Yes, and then whoever died innocently, who wasn't murdered in the war, whoever died innocently, like that child who's in the picture, has a chance of being resurrected. Right. Just like Jesus.
So silver linings.
So it's much later.
That's what they're essentially promising people here. So this is how they're going to drag somebody in. They're going to say, oh, well, you lost this person, you'll get to see them again.
And dragging someone in, I like the way you've put it that way, Jana, because that's exactly what we're getting. Early in the study, we're only on lesson 2, and already we're getting the promises that are tailored to people who are experiencing some kind of loss or trauma.
Yeah.
And what I found especially
I was just going to say very little information about. Oh, God damn it! I was just going to say at this point they've included almost no information about actual doctrine, just the promises of what will be so grand if you muddle through that stuff later.
Indeed, and I found you'll see I've highlighted some words where the promise that's given is extremely distasteful from the point of view of abuse victims. No one will experience injustice, even though many abuse victims, including you, Jana, if you don't mind me saying, have experienced injustice in their mishandling of abuse. No one will be plagued by troubling thoughts or memories. Again, Jana, I'm not sure that describes your experience with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes, absolutely. 100% does. And it's, And I mean, they're really just saying, like, pick what hurts you the most, and I'm going to say that I'm going to fix all of it. But there's no real, it's payout.
And again, you can be a believer in the Bible. You can be a believer in Job 33, John 5, Psalm 37. Doesn't get you to, oh, Jesus invisibly chose Jehovah's Witnesses in 1919. You can go along with all these verses and believe all these things without believing that Anthony Morris and Stephen Lett are among God's one and only channel with mankind, you know?
So my pioneer brain, Andrew, would say, which one of these appeals to you?
In case you haven't noticed, Andrew, Jana is recruiting you. Jana is basically conducting the Bible study, and you are her student. I hope. I realize I'm stating the obvious at this point, but
I was never a pioneer. I'll leave it to her.
Too, and no one got baptized, so I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I would say which one of these appeals to you, and then we would emotionally manipulate you based on tailor it to your experience.
Which one does appeal to you, Andrew?
I would like to suffer as a result of war. Oh, sorry, the wrong side. I would like to live forever in ideal conditions. See dead love.
But in the words of Freddie Mercury, who wants to live forever?
Yeah,
Philosophical
that was Hamlet
thought.
as well. Even before Freddie Mercury, Hamlet's point, but that to be or not to be soliloquy, a big part of that is whether he should kill himself or not. But a big part of it is this feeling he has of the only thing worse than death is to be trapped in some sort of heaven forever. So there's definitely that, and just listening, especially if heaven was just looking at these brochures the whole time, it would be terrible. But
It's very interesting for me to hear the word soliloquy used without it being in reference to a part on an assembly. But carry on.
Oh, it's gone over my head.
Okay, sorry.
But well, they're all sort of similar, aren't they? They're all the same. It's all immortality. See dead ones resurrected. Well, that's immortality. Enjoy good health. Well, I'd love that. Eat. I love food. I'm getting an infestation of larvae worms or whatever they're called. That turn into moths. So I'd like them to be gone. So yeah, I'd have plenty to eat. So what would you do then? You'd get me a cake or something.
As long as there's cake, you're in.
Eat cake all the time.
Although, just spoiler alert, it's really more tables with fruit. That's kind of the diet in paradise.
No. I haven't had fruit for 5 years.
I've never heard the question addressed by official doctrine, but there was an ongoing debate that I had heard growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. Are we going to eat meat in paradise? Are we still going to kill animals for food?
Right. So we would always speculate about it, and my theory was that there would be fruit that tasted like those things. So I'd be like, yeah, we would have this type of apple that would be chicken flavored, and then you could just fry it.
A sausage flavored banana. Yeah.
Yeah, sausage flavored banana.
Oh, wow.
That is completely G-rated.
That would be a good solution, wouldn't it, for when it comes to veganism and stopping meat production?
Scientifically, we are getting closer to that. People are now growing meat in a lab, so you can.
I'm so excited about that.
It's almost as though science has the answers, whereas religion only speculates. Isn't that interesting?
It's what Ricky Gervais always says. You can definitely see. I remember Ricky Gervais saying this thing of if the whole world died or whatever, and civilization had to start again, in 1,000 years, the science books and the maths books would look exactly the same as they do now. Whereas all the religious books, you wouldn't have one called Jehovah's Witness, you wouldn't have one called Judaism. They would all be completely different, equally bonkers, but they're all different and weird and strange. So yeah, got to stick with science.
And on that bombshell,
I always secretly found him funny, and then it was just so troublesome as a Jehovah's Witness to Ricky Gervais.
Another thing that's troublesome if you're a Jehovah's Witness is playing soccer, which makes this illustration extremely irritating, because the amount of soccer shaming, seriously, I cover the broadcasts, it's off the scale. They are constantly shaming especially young men who enjoy either watching or playing football. They seem to want the monopoly on basically people's time and people's enjoyment, and anything that people can enjoy or feel euphoric towards, they frown upon.
I think that it's also, in a weird way, it's kind of the same way that they deal with racism. Is we don't want you to be divided over sports teams. We want you to be divided of us versus them, Jehovah's Witnesses versus the rest of the world. We don't want any reason for divisions among us, because the only division we want is them and us.
Indeed. So, yeah, I didn't really appreciate that illustration.
Yeah. And so that one specifically, they're going to be the comparison between the person with the walker, and then now he's restored to perfect health and a strong body, and then the child who has to work for his food, and now he has abundance and he can play, and then this woman who's suffering from depression, and now she's in a field, which obviously means hope.
Yeah, we've established that fields are synonymous with hope.
I can't think of a place I'd rather be less than in the middle of a field. I just don't want it. And it's always the religious thing, isn't it? It's always the field. Sting sings about the field. Everyone likes the field. Insects, I suppose there would. I mean, there wouldn't be, would there? But yeah, I just don't want it. I'd rather
imagine if you were in the middle of a field of stinging nettles. That would not give me hope.
Yeah, they highly are underestimating how powerful my depression is if they think standing in a field is going to be enough. Unless that field is full of like
poppies.
Unless all of those flowers, their pollen is like made of Zoloft or something, it's not going to be helpful for me.
If it were poppy seeds, if you were in poppies, you'd have the heroin from that.
That's true.
But you'll be pleased to know we have another video.
Oh,
yay!
So, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, this one's 4 minutes.
Oh, a field.
Field.
Yeah, I'm already feeling hopeful.
During the time of segregation,
Can you hear the sound?
blacks
no.
and whites, we
No.
couldn't mix.
Oh, I can hear it. I'm just
Not only
disparaging
that,
of what's
it had
happening.
Oh, okay.
Knowing where you're supposed to go. I couldn't understand why we couldn't get along.
They're really going there.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Grandma, he's just a boy. Why are you saying sir?
Be quiet. I want you to know your place.
I told her after we got back on the track, like, I'll never hold my head down, My grandmother, she knew I had a love for the Bible because I would always read the Bible as a kid. But I couldn't understand it. I used to pray, what makes us so different? Why we can't live together? I met a group, and this group was like what I really wanted to be in. It was about politics. They said, we fighting injustice, and when they said that word injustice, it was like, yeah, this is what I want to be in, right? Be part of something that can change and make people united, right? That was my goal. We started protesting about police brutality, and I think that's what a lot of people, was focusing on. I liked some of the things that they was doing, but they trained us every day in military training, learn how to use weapons and stuff like that.
These are all Bethelites, by the way.
I'm thinking like,
You
this
can
is
tell
not
by
what
their
I
dances.
want to be in. This is not what I joined. So I started like going back to God again, to reading the Bible, because it's like, I'm not changing anything. The Bible that I was reading was the King James Version. So I was reading it, but I couldn't understand it. We went to Jamaica, and I saw this Bible, the New World Translation. And I started reading it, and it made so much sense. I could understand it, and it wasn't thee and thou. I was like, wow. Like, this is the one I want to get. One day, 2 women knocked on the door. I didn't know they were Jehovah's Witnesses. All I could see was a Bible. And I said, where did you get that Bible from? And they said, well, okay, we'll bring you one. And they did. So they brought me the Bible, but I didn't know I was going to have a Bible study come along with it. The first time I went to a convention of Jehovah's Witnesses, it was like 10,000 people. When I go in there and I see all these different faces and different colors, it's like Jehovah showing me like, hey, Rafika, remember you asked me about all different people getting together and being one? See, I'm not partial. They do get along. We are unified. And it just made me feel so good inside. Yes, this is the organization that I want to be in. I just see people as people, and I can preach and be friends with anybody. Now that I know what the Bible really teaches, I have a wonderful life. Because I know that only God and His government can bring about peace. Just like how Jehovah unified everybody, I would like for everybody to be unified and come to know Jehovah, just like I know Him. Jehovah answered my prayer.
Oof.
So,
And that's the end of the live
thoughts?
stream because we all need a complete break. A recess. I call recess.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh no.
Is that the first time you've seen that video, Rudy?
It seems vaguely familiar, but I also know I've heard tons of stories like that. So I might have seen that video, or I might have just heard stories like that growing up, but it was very familiar. But man, seeing it all laid out like that, cringy as hell. Do they really think they have a monopoly on not being racist? As a religion? I mean, really. Not that that's even true in practice all the time, depending on where you are, but like they really act like they have a monopoly on not being racist as a religion.
And just the marketing,
Well,
it's very well timed because of all of the protests that have been happening over, the summer.
That pisses me off too.
I know. It's marketing. They know what they're doing. It has nothing to do with actually making the world a better place. And that's the part that's the most infuriating is because they spend all of this time teaching you that the world is a terrible place and that's why everybody deserves to be destroyed. And then you see all these people in the street fighting for equality and the same thing. And then you're like, oh, actually, people want this world to be better. And it's not just you guys.
Yeah, if a witness had showed that to me, like if I was new to seeing all this and a witness, even a black witness, if they had showed me that video and been like, isn't that great? I would be like, get out of my house. What are you talking about? Like, oh, fighting for injustice was the thing that she was doing that was bad? What are you talking about?
Right. The Black Panthers made no progress for
it was all useless. It was all useless. Everybody knows they did not accomplish anything and we haven't made any progress.
Wow.
And that's really the message for this part of the brochure. So you have there the heading, The Bible's Hope Can Make a Difference. Many people are discouraged or even angered by the problems they see around them. Some fight to try to change things for the better. And clearly when you watch the video, the message is there's no point fighting to improve things for the better. Jehovah's Witnesses today are a different organization due to the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. They benefit in many ways and have improved in many ways due to that civil rights movement, but they weren't allowed to be involved themselves. And actually, when you look at the history of the religion, pre-civil rights movement, you find a lot of racism in the literature, which I've discussed in my video and I've written about in my book. But they gloss over all of that and just give this whitewashed version, and also effectively dissuade people from being instruments of change themselves.
I think the worst part of this video is the fact that they really made Black Jehovah's Witnesses dress up and pick cotton in a field.
Oh, they did.
On video.
That really happened.
They really did that.
That's so upsetting. For Jehovah. For free.
Just
now you have this... Yeah.
And then, goodness gracious.
You're still processing this, aren't you?
So much to take in.
You see, I've done a rebuttal to this already, so I've watched this a few times by this point, but I appreciate this may be very raw for you, so sorry if I've triggered you there. So you have there some people say...
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go on.
JW Facts. JW Facts, I remember during my waking up process, I was kind of terrified of JW Facts because it was clearly an apostate website. But the part about race on JW Facts, and it was talking about the Negro brain and how they're built for servitude. And I was like,
wow.
I can't be on this website anymore. This is completely biased, but it's clearly from the literature. So I had to accept that was clearly from the literature. And then I just never went back to the website again. I was like, I'm just not going to use that for my research anymore. But yeah, they do. They think they have a monopoly on uniting people, and really they divide families.
If you go to the world headquarters in Warwick, there's a room dedicated to the photodrama of creation, Russell's photodrama of creation, and I show it in my documentary. One of the slides is about the curse of Ham, and the race that was cursed, supposedly cursed, was the black race, and that's in the photodrama. So it was there from the very beginning. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Mormons still hold to that, actually. They've changed the way they interpret it, but, you know.
Right, sure.
I really want to know what Andrew's take on this was.
I was thinking about the Mormon stuff as well, because I had, do you guys, well, I don't know if you would, but I was speaking to a Mormon person on my podcast the other day, an ex-Mormon called Dan Beecher, and he talks exactly about that, about the racism involved in it. Look, I mean, this whole brochure is aimed at sort of, they're trying obviously to be popular, like with kids and stuff, and do like what the right thing is now, and they're trying to sort of ignore an entire history, apparently, from what you guys are telling me, because I don't know enough about it, but a history that is marked by racism. I mean, they're not alone in doing that. I mean, that's a lot of companies do that. A lot of, I mean, yeah, it's horrific. And I think your point was something I didn't actually think about originally, that they were making people of color go to cotton fields and to film this, and given their history and given that, you know, religious entities are not typically on the side of progression and racial equality and stuff. It's just, you know, bogus, isn't it? But
yeah, and I bet they were all happy to do it. That's the worst part.
That's the most upsetting
probably
part.
So excited to be participating in this.
Sure, they believe it. They believe in the message, and you know, it's crazy.
We're getting some comments on the technical side. Rianne says, Janet, your voice recording is hard to hear. Can you volume it up? I've lowered the volume on mine. Can you still hear me? Am I okay?
Oh yeah.
So I've mine was too boomy apparently. So hopefully, John, if you can either get closer to the mic or something, that would be fantastic.
I know Rihanna.
What's that?
I know Rihanna.
Did I say Rihanna?
No, I know who she is. I know her. She often.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Rihanna, yeah. Oh, Rihanna's. Yes, that's much better. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, Rihanna's a fantastic supporter, and she's on all the live streams. So
I always say her name wrong.
There you go. So some people say the Bible's promises for the future are too good to be true. Why do you think it is important to examine the evidence? It's not really an evidence-based process, though, is it?
Who's saying that? I know plenty of people who don't believe in the Bible or its promises for the future, and I can tell you none of them are just saying it's too good to be true as their reason for not believing it. Not a single one.
Yeah.
So you have here the summary. The take-home message from this lesson is the Bible gives us hope and helps us to cope with challenges by promising a future filled with happiness. I would say there's also a take-home message there that you're not to get involved in change yourself. You should just leave everything, outsource everything to Jehovah, whose solution to injustice is to murder nearly 8 billion men, women, and children. You then have a series of Awake and web articles and Watchtower articles.
Back off from your mic a little bit, maybe, Lloyd, because it's still kind of...
Okay, sure. Let me turn it down. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. It's just a little, little loud.
Backing off there. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that. So studies are being expected to watch this music video, Imagine the Time. They're using their music videos in the Bible study process. And again, you have, that's not going to go well. I'm sorry. I watch these music videos on a monthly basis when I do my rebuttals. They are not something you should be proud of if you're a Jehovah's Witness. And you have very overtly there in this Watchtower article, the message, I no longer feel that I have to change the world. So that, again, is really been one of the main messages from what we've just been watching, is you shouldn't you don't have any real agency in progress. You shouldn't be in any way involved in making the world a better place. You should
Everyone's
just leave it to
doomed, so just give up.
exactly.
Yeah. I think the idea that you're never going to make meaningful change, so why bother making any, is so defeatist.
It's so defeatist. So just cover yourself in this cocoon of Bible literature that we literally spew at you and just hunker down and wait.
Indeed.
Well, they don't want you to challenge it, do they? I mean, that's the thing. They want to discourage any challenging, any trying to change any rules within the Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's the whole point. There's some Hebrew there. I could read that.
I was going to say, because you mentioned before about reading Hebrew, I'm going to test your knowledge very shortly.
Okay, I don't know what it means. I could just read it also.
Don't back out now, Andrew. You told us you learned Hebrew. I'm going to test your damn knowledge.
I specifically said I can't understand what I'm actually reading, but I can read the letters.
Bit of a U-turn, noted. Can you trust the Bible? Likely you are curious about what it teaches, but perhaps you are also cautious. You should really be cautious about studying with Jehovah's Witnesses for reasons other than the Bible, if I'm honest. But anyway, should you trust promises and advice from such an old book? Can you really believe what the Bible says about enjoying life now and in the future? Millions of people do. So again, you have this, lots of people say, some people say, lots of people think, millions of people feel this way, so you should feel this way too.
It's very advertising, isn't it? 4 out of 5 women like our new products for hair shampoo.
9 out of 10 dentists recommend.
It's also join the collective. Everybody else thinks this way. You should think this way too.
Yeah.
Stop
Basic
having all the
psychology, isn't it?
individual thoughts about things.
We all do it. We all do it, don't we? Even on Twitter or whatever, you see someone has a lot of followers or something, you automatically are a little bit more open-minded to them as a channel or YouTube or whatever it might be than you would be if they had 1 or 2.
Yeah, it's like, what do they have to say? I wonder.
Yeah.
Bit of psychology going on here. And then it makes a lot of statements about the Bible that I have a problem with now that I've done a bit of objective research into the Bible. So it says in part 1, the Bible claims to be a record of accurate words of truth. You have another clipped quote there. It relates real events that involved real people. I'm sure that's true in at least some cases. There is, for example, Hezekiah's tunnel. So, we have some kind of evidence for the reign of King Hezekiah. Not so with Adam and Eve. Not so with Noah. Not so with Abraham. Not so with... There's a whole chunk of the Bible that we have no proof at all that these people actually existed and were real people.
Right, just because you can archaeologically prove that, maybe David was the king of Israel at some point, doesn't mean that David miraculously slayed a giant. Just because he might have been an actual person doesn't mean that every story about him was definitely true.
Indeed, and David's one of the sketchier ones. You can just about say something about David. I think that there has been some evidence, but certainly anything earlier than David, there's no evidence that these people even existed. And then it says many historians and archaeologists have confirmed the accuracy of important dates, people, places, and events described in the Bible. Notice it doesn't say all the important dates, people, and places.
And then just leaves it at that. Gives you no backup.
People say this. People have said this. That's their source cited. People have said this.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that they have to say it relates to real events that involve real people, because you very rarely read a historian's book and it starts with, this is real people and real... It sounds like sort of Trump trying to cover up a lie. They're real people, I promise you. They're
real people.
And have the most historical book. It's more accurate
the very best people are in this book. I've met them. They're fabulous. I love them.
What an impression. Wow.
So, point 2, I'm going to piss off the Trump supporters now. Point 2, why can we say that the Bible is not out of date? In many ways, the Bible has proved to be ahead of its time. For example, it touches on scientific subjects. Yeah, but it doesn't do so well with them, does it? And we're going to come to some examples in a short while. And then point 3, why can we trust what the Bible says about the future? The Bible contains prophecies, and then it tells people what prophecies are, that foretell the things that have not yet been done. It accurately foretold numerous historical events long before they occurred, numerous meaning more than one, I assume. It also described today's world conditions in striking detail. Again, we're going to get to the prophetic points.
In the same way that a horoscope does.
Pretty much. They've given us a video in the Dig Deeper section. In fact, they've given us 2 videos.
Oh.
I'm sorry, there's 2 more videos that we need to watch, but they're short. That's a good thing. And they don't involve Black Jehovah's Witnesses picking cotton. Yeah, so there's a bonus there. So these 2 videos are the slam dunk arguments that are being given to people who study the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses to prove the authenticity of the Bible. I don't think I'm bigging them up too much. That's how they're being presented. Mm-hmm. And with this in mind, let's look at video.
I'm just going to say, if Bill Nye is not at the beginning of it, then I just instantly
Yeah, no, that's where I get all my science information.
So here we go. Let me know if you can hear the audio.
During the time
yes, unfortunately,
when the Bible
I
was
can
written,
hear it.
Okay.
Many people had mistaken ideas about the shape of the earth. A theory written after the Bible was completed was that the universe emerged from a cosmic egg and that the earth is supported by various creatures. In contrast, about the year 1473 BCE, Moses wrote that the earth is suspended upon nothing. And around the year 732 BCE, the prophet Isaiah wrote that the earth is a circle or sphere. These Bible writers contradicted ideas that were popular at the time. It was some 200 years after Isaiah's day that the Greek philosopher Pythagoras may have proposed that the earth is a sphere. And more than 3,000 years passed from Moses' writing until scientists such as Isaac Newton realized that the earth seemed to hang upon nothing.
So, where do we even begin there?
Circle or sphere is my favorite part. Like, oh, so we're just going to insert sphere because that word is definitely not there. We're just going to say circle is sphere now. Got it.
And
so
that was my question for Andrew when it comes to Hebrew. So, Andrew, what's the Hebrew word for circle that's used in Isaiah? Disappointing.
Yeah, no, I've got no idea. I would only, like I was trying to say, all I can do is read it. So when I've been to Israel a bunch of times, and whenever I've been there, it's been like my party trick to go to parties and stuff. And the Israelis never expect an English person because they
don't. See, when I spoke to your agent, one of the first questions was, "Is he conversant in Hebrew?" She said, "Yes."
Yeah. My mum is.
Get your mama. Get her. Yeah.
People I don't live with her.
The word that's used in Isaiah when it talks about the circle of the earth is chug, which means literally circle. And as we all know, a circle is not necessarily or isn't a 3-dimensional object. So what they're describing is a disc, and the earth is not disc-shaped. There is actually a word that Isaiah could have used if he was describing the true shape of the earth, and that word is, Andrew...
You're going to keep doing this to him, huh?
Here in Hebrew. Should I look it up?
The word...
Yeah.
The word is kadur, and as I'm sure you all know. And Jana...
It's done 3 letters. I don't know what it looks like. It's like a C like that, and then there's like an R, which looks like an English R backwards. So I could spell that. I could draw it out in. I'm going to do that.
So while you do that, Andrew, Jana is going to look up Isaiah 22 verse 18.
Okay.
Where it uses the Hebrew word kadur.
Too fast.
All
right, 22, 18.
Okay. Yeah.
says, he will certainly wrap you up tightly and hurl you like a ball into a wide land. There you will die.
So they
And
have
there
a
your
word for
glorious chariots will be a disgrace to your master's house.
They had a word, or Isaiah, the writers of Isaiah, there were numerous writers, which we'll get to. There were numerous writers of Isaiah. They had a Hebrew word for ball. They went with disc or circle.
Right.
That's not impressive.
Also, hangs on nothing is not the same as the theory of gravity.
Exactly.
It's not interchangeable.
It's not the same thing.
It's poetic, but it's wrong. The Earth is suspended by gravitational forces, which is why it moves in an orbit around the sun. Yeah.
That video is probably of everything. That's the one that, like the young me, that would have grabbed me. That would have taken me.
Okay.
That's the one that would have gone. I love all the science stuff. And if you're a kid, you believe, like the adults, that it's factually correct, right? So I'm just like, wow, they did that before the science. That would have taken me in totally.
The thing I never heard as a witness is that Muslim people do the exact same thing with verses in the Quran. There are verses in the Quran that they retcon to interpret as, oh, see, the Quran says accurate scientific things that we couldn't have possibly known at the time. And they're exactly the same amount of credibility of like, yeah, I guess if you kind of interpret it that way, it sort of kind of sounds like it. If you already know what the actual science says, you could interpret it that way. But, yeah, not very credible.
I love how they shy away here, too, from the blood issue, because the blood issue is where the science comes in, because they always say, you see, they would ban women out into the wilderness when they were on their period because blood has all these pathogens and communicable diseases, and so it was for their safety. We shouldn't eat blood for safety. And like that, you know, we hadn't discovered AIDS and HIV and bloodborne diseases yet. So this was science that the Bible was teaching. And so they're being even sneakier about the blood issue here, because I'm sure the Bible Teach book mentions it somewhere around this time with the science aspect of things.
So we have there a heading, Science Agrees with the Bible. We've just seen the video. And you have there this question, why is the statement that the Earth is suspended upon nothing surprising? Well, it's not surprising, given that it was written by people who don't know about gravity. And therefore, the fact that they got it wrong isn't surprising.
Everybody was guessing. Somebody was bound to say something that sounded kind of sort of right.
Yeah. Having corners and pillars and posits the idea that there could be a tree high enough or a mountain high enough for you to go to the top and see all of the Earth. So again, this is the context that's missing here. And then you have it talking about the water cycle, and it asks us to read Job 36, 27 and 28. Could you read that, Jana? I feel like a Bible study conductor at this point. Sorry about
this. You get to do the English words.
Ooh, this is not fair.
Job 36, 27, 28, because that's how we do it. We always repeat it before you read it, right? Mm-hmm. He draws up the drops of water. They condense into rain from his midst. Then the clouds pour it down. They shower down upon mankind.
He being God. So what the verse is actually saying is, God draws up the water and then rains it back down again.
Condenses it into rain, and then the clouds pour it down.
He's not really describing it's not really describing evaporation, is it? It's saying that God does it, which isn't, again, scientifically accurate.
And even if it was accurately describing the water cycle is so easily observable. There is nothing impressive about this. Like, just about anybody could be like, there's lots of clouds, and then it rains, then the sky's clear, and then the water goes away, and then there's clouds again. Interesting. Like, that's super not hard to put together.
Wait, is that how it works?
Keep up, Andrew. Keep up. And now we have this section on prophecy, and you'll be relieved to know we have our last video And it's less than a minute long, although only by 2 seconds. So let me do my wizardry. Is my mic volume okay, by the way? Because people have been saying it's...
Just if you don't get too close to it, it's fine.
And mine's better?
Yes,
yours is fantastic. I'm the one that's yeah. So we're going to stop that screen. You'd be surprised how many people have said that to me over the course of my life.
You really do. You sound like the voice of Jehovah in the old dramas.
Well, all I'm going to say is coincidence. So
voice, doesn't it? I always say this to Lloyd about his voice. I don't want to embarrass you, Lloyd, but what a voice. Can we take a moment to appreciate it, everybody? Yeah.
But let it be just a moment, because we have a video to watch. Can you hear the audio on this? Okay.
No human can foretell the future in exact
Sesame Street?
Yet about the year 732 BCE, the prophet Isaiah foretold that a man named Cyrus would conquer the mighty city of Babylon, that he would dry up a river, and that he would enter the city through open gates. History confirms that every detail of this prophecy was fulfilled. Concerning the same city, the prophet Jeremiah foretold that Babylon would become piles of stones and never again be inhabited. Despite its strategic location, Babylon eventually became a pile of stones and remains that way.
So that was our second piece of slam dunk evidence to support the authenticity of the Bible. The first being the earth is a sphere and the earth is a circle and the earth hangs upon nothing, and also the water cycle. And now we're getting prophecy. Isaiah prophesied the circumstances surrounding the destruction of Babylon by Cyrus. But did he? At this point, if you don't really know much about the Bible, you could be hoodwinked by this. But when you learn a bit more about the Bible and when it was actually written, I would just ask, well, first of all, when it comes to the current state of Babylon, I'd ask anyone to go on Google Earth and look at that region and tell me whether there's any evidence at all that it's completely not lived in.
Uninhabited.
I would suggest that there's some evidence that people do live in the footprint of where ancient Babylon was. And I've talked about this, by the way, in my Always Rejoice rebuttal. But look also at when Isaiah was actually written. Because if you go to the Wikipedia page dating the Bible, it gives you a list of all the different periods in which the books of the Old Testament were written. The first, so it's called First, Second, and Third, which tells you something about the fact that this was written over a long period of time by different people. The first book of Isaiah was written in, let me double check this, the exilic period from 586 to 539 BCE. Now remember, 539 being, of course, the year that Babylon fell. Isaiah was a work in progress during the events that were supposedly prophesied in the book of Isaiah. Now, what seems more logical, the fact that this is a genuine prophecy, that they wrote down something before it happened, or that we're talking about a selection of material that was grouped together in a book that was later packaged as Isaiah, and that people wrote in those details after the fact, which seems more likely.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like people write historical fiction now. That's a genre. So thinking of, all right, so I have this idea for a story. The current events that are happening today. Okay, so I'm going to put a prophet that represents our God because, our God is real and his prophets are accurate, of course. And we're going to have him be saying that all this was going to happen. But I'm writing it, of course, after or while it's happening. Like, that's really common. Like, I can think of books that I have read, modern books that have something along those lines with some sort of fantastical supernatural element to explain actual historical events that have already happened.
Indeed. Basically, it's fairly obvious what's happened here. that these are events that were written after the fact. But also, even if Babylon, and there are some who could say yes, but Babylon is a pile of rubble, and you see there the image. Considering the influence that the Babylonian Empire had and how proud and mighty it once was, it perhaps is still at least a bit significant that the city of ancient Babylon mostly looks like this. But all I would say there is, how many times in the Old Testament is it predicted that a city or nation will be destroyed completely and never inhabited again? It happens quite a lot. And the only time where it happened and it ended up never being inhabited, or roughly not being inhabited again, was Babylon. So they're cherry picking the one time where the prophecy sort of happened.
And that's not even technically true, because they said never. I could move to Babylon right now and just end that. I mean, you could. If you never means never, not just, well, it hasn't happened yet. So technically the prophecy still hasn't been fulfilled.
Sure. I give in my convention rebuttal a few examples, in fact, and one of them being Tyre. And it's very interesting when you read the prophecies that were made about Tyre. They're kind of almost admitting in the Bible, okay, this didn't work out, this didn't happen, so instead God's going to do this instead. They're almost admitting that they get the prophecy wrong in the Bible when they're talking about Tyre. So, look, if you make enough prophecies about enough cities being destroyed, sooner or later, you're going to hit the jackpot. And that's what happened basically with Babylon.
Too bad nobody made a prophecy about your town.
Indeed, yeah. You really had to go there. You really had to go there, Jan. Am I glitching again? Sorry.
Nope, you're fine.
No.
Okay, good. So we get to point 6. The Bible foretold things we see today. These are apparently the last days, according to 2 Timothy 3, verse 1, Matthew 24, 6 and 7, 2 Timothy 3, 1 to 5. That seems like bulletproof logic.
Yeah, if I would be impressed if they described iPhones, but people being generally shitty is kind of the permanent state of humanity.
Right.
Indeed. And speaking of the earthquake thing, I think I mentioned before, the prophecy goes something like, there will be earthquakes in one place after another.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to no earthquakes, or
in any place.
Or as opposed to earthquakes in only one place on the Earth's crust? How is this scientifically or geologically possible, you know?
Yeah.
And then this is literally just building up the wall. So we've dragged you in with all of these promises of how great things are going to be if you start believing. And now let's build up this wall against the rest of the world. You see how bad it is out there? You don't want to go back out there.
Yeah, it just
Right,
really...
Yeah. God, it is. It's look, that's what religion is. It's tribal, and it's us against them, and they want more us people. As I was saying at the beginning, the particular cult or sect that I grew up in, although even if it was secular, was the opposite. It was still, we're a tribe on our own. Go away, everyone. It was still the same thing of like the outside world is bad. So just without the come join us part.
Yeah.
I just noticed that on these graphics, they have them kind of Instagram style with comments, shares, and likes. And there's 12,854 likes of the dude kicking a policeman, 45,213 likes for the tank, and 53,352 likes for the earthquake. Who are these people?
I'm not gonna lie, I would have retweeted the first one of the dude kicking the police officer. I would have retweeted that.
Oh, God. I've just noticed that now.
The whole brochure, though, I mean, the Instagram stuff doesn't surprise me at all, because the whole brochure is like, we want young people. Even the woman with the one in the cotton fields, and that the protagonist of the film was saying in that, I couldn't read the Bible was too hard, because it's just, the whole thing is like, young people are not, they've got Instagram, they've got Twitter, they don't want to read an old Bible now. they want this, and this is like Instagram of carnage and crazy stuff. So that's going to get like a young child's mind really active towards this kind of stuff.
How young do you think that the target audience of this should be? Because I know they're targeting adults with this.
I feel like, I mean, your brain still has a lot of elasticity when you're, as young as the younger the better. I think to get people in, for an adult to get sucked into this as an adult, I think they would have to have quite and I don't mean this in a disparaging way at all, but they must have quite a sad or lonely existence, or must really be missing something to need.
Well,
that.
that's ideal.
That's
the ideal
existences.
Yes.
So, yeah, they target adults with problems. They have videos and stuff in the literature all the time about how, well, if you preach to somebody now, maybe they just haven't had a shitty enough experience yet that they'll want to listen to the message. Like, oh, well, maybe they're going to die in a few years, and then they're going to want to hit you up again and be like, so what was that about living forever, seeing your loved ones again?
Yeah, they're very overt about that, actually.
Yeah.
So some people say the Bible is a book of myths and legends. That's what some people are saying.
Many people?
I'm guessing it was the same made-up people, yeah. And in your opinion, what is the strongest evidence that the Bible is trustworthy? So you're supposed to say at this point, water cycle, shape of the earth, prophecies, the earth hanging upon nothing. Again, you can if you want, and I hopefully have given some fairly compelling reasons as to why the evidence we've looked at doesn't demonstrate the Bible's authenticity. But even if you want to insist that the Bible is authentically the Word of God, again, without wanting to labour the point too much, that doesn't take you to Jesus in 1919 invisibly selected Joseph Rutherford and his pals. Just doesn't get you there.
I would also argue that even if the science thing, the history thing, the prophecies, even if all of that was actually impressive evidence, that would only prove those things.
Those parts.
It's like, yes, this part is accurate. That doesn't mean all of it, whole cloth, is accurate. It just means that, that part is accurate for some reason that I don't understand. Doesn't mean a God wrote it. Doesn't mean it's all true.
We're going to revisit the first chapter where we learned all scriptures are beneficial. Would you like to read that scripture for me?
You are triggering me. Stop.
An unintended side effect of this live stream is that Jana is a Jehovah's Witness again. Who knew?
Oh, don't say that. No.
Summary: history, science, and prophecy all indicate that you can trust the Bible. Who knew? And we have, in support of this, a number of videos and Watchtower articles that people need to look up. One of which features Gerrit Loesch in front of a seemingly homoerotic image of a warrior on a horse.
I just want to say, if you scroll up a bit, there's a video that says, like, is the Bible side, like, I don't remember the exact, does science agree with the Bible? The answer is no. Literally just read the story of Noah. Just that.
Yeah. There are issues there. There are issues. So have we reached the end? Oh, have you enjoyed what you learned? Well, since Andrew is our guinea pig, Andrew, have you enjoyed what you've learned?
I think I have, but I enjoy, I might enjoy a horror film. It doesn't mean I want to be part of my world.
Not the most glowing endorsement. Yeah. Andrew's Google review of this book. Enjoyable like a horror film.
Very morbid, very weird.
Yeah.
But the good news is,
go on.
Unlike most horror films, there is no charge for either the book or the course. So would that rope you in? I mean, my argument would be you get what you pay for. And sometimes it's good if you're paying for something, that means it's good quality. The fact that this is free is kind of telling, and the quality is kind of indicative of what we've of the price tag,
I would say actually, you know what? I think the quality, if we're talking about the actual design and stuff, I think the quality
is beautiful.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're working with content which is not true. So there's only so. I mean, if we're judging them not on their truthability, if that, I don't know if that's a word, but if we're judging them based on what they're doing to lure people in, they're doing a fantastic job. They really are, and I mean, they're not alone in that. There are churches around the world who are doing an amazing job. I met an exorcist who was like, he's got like a whole YouTube set up now and a whole big thing, and he said so many similar things, this exorcist, to what has been said in this. Especially like there's some of the tone and stuff, and some of the I can't remember exactly what I was going to say about that, but yeah, I think they've done a really good job. I think the production is really good, and I think if I were a kid or if I were very lonely and I didn't know what I already know today, I think it could draw me in definitely more than the old stuff, the old stuffy Bible stuff that could work. As for the content, I mean, it's obviously it's complete nonsense, but we're not here to even debate that. We know that, right? So
you're talking about the aesthetics and the font choice,
wonderful,
and that kind of thing.
Their PR job.
Andrew, can I ask you a favor? If you ever happen to run into a Jehovah's Witness in your day-to-day life, please tell them that you read one of their brochures and it sounded very similar to what you heard from an exorcist. I just need to know, like, you.
And then what we would like is for you to take a photograph of their face as you say that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, and then DM all of us.
I don't think I've ever met an active Jehovah's Witness. I've only ever met ex-Jehovah's Witness. I don't walk in the same circles, I suppose. They might have knocked on doors actually when I was younger. I don't really know, but yeah.
I was only in England in the summertime, and they found me there too. So I don't know how you avoided them for so long.
I have a video on my channel from like not last year, but the year before that. There was a little like fall festival in my town, and they had a booth. And I went up and recorded an hour-long conversation with them. They didn't know they were being recorded, of course, but I also didn't have them on video. It was audio only, so it wasn't like they could be identified. Right. But interesting. It was interesting.
Wow.
And like you were saying about being lonely, so I live in a secure community where like you can't get into the buildings unless you live here, right? And so a pair of witnesses were hanging out in the one common area, and they saw an older woman who was about to buzz into the building carrying her groceries and offered to help her.
Yeah, of course.
Which seems so sweet.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to intercept so badly because it was and now I hear from neighbors that she's been roped in. So
Well, one of the effects of being roped in is that if you ever decide to leave, you will be shunned by your believing family. And yet, look what it says at the bottom there. The Bible course, you will learn about many topics, including the purpose of life, how to find real peace, how families can be happy. That's a selling point, apparently, for Jehovah's Witnesses, and what the Bible promises for the future, asterisk, global genocide. So it's what it's not saying, really, that irritates me more than anything, what it's leaving out. But I suppose, again, this is just a typical sales tactic. Keep out all the unpleasant stuff and just hit them with the pandas and the fruit and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, it really does sound like a sales pitch. Like, this information is free, and because we want you to know what the secret is.
What's the worst that could happen? Yeah.
Well, it's also like that thing that we were talking about before as well. Like we're talking about how they're trying to rope in maybe children or lonely adults, and most of those people will have very difficult relationships with their families. If they didn't, they were not either they're not lonely really because they have their family, or like what child doesn't have some issues with their family. So they really are aiming at those people. There's nothing there like you'll become better at your job, you'll have a greater career, you'll have or more career satisfaction, your commute will be shorter. There's none of that stuff that's like an adult who's busy. It's for the lonely people, your family. That's why can't I get on with my family? What's going on? Let me come into your sect, I suppose. And then, no good.
Yeah.
Over 800 on this live stream. And those who have watched it from beginning to end, first of all, well done. This was a bit of a marathon. I didn't intend for it to be this long. But those of you who have watched from beginning to end, either now or later once this is on the channel, you have had 5% of a Jehovah's Witness Bible study because we've had 3 lessons out of 60. So next time you speak to Jehovah's Witnesses and they say, would you like a Bible study? You can say, I've had 5% of one already, and here is my opinion, and you can tell them what you think.
Was not a fan. 0 out of 10.
I apologize for my part in it.
Yeah, Johnny, you can properly count your time, you know. Think of all the hundreds of people you've studied with in this live stream.
So
Yeah, let's see.
Take
2
the hour
hours,
and
800
multiply it
people.
by the...
You've got your service
Oh.
time done for the year, baby.
Not what I had envisioned doing on this channel when I first started out, but we got there eventually, yeah. I appear to be now in the business of indoctrinating people to become Jehovah's Witnesses.
I gotta say, I'm so glad that we got
Unsubscribe.
Andrew on for this, because I love seeing a layman's reaction to all of this. Like, we're just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
remember that? And they're just like,
Oh, what? What is that?
it's beautiful. Mwah, perfect.
And he's been typically good-natured about it, and has even found positive things to say, even if it was just, oh, the aesthetics and font choice is nice. So
And
You
did you
know
come
what,
up
though?
with the word sphere in the end?
Did I come up with the what?
The
My worst
word
fear?
Sphere in the end?
Probably joining the Jehovah's Witness now. That might be my worst fear. I mean, yeah, it's a funny one, you know, because I'm, you know, one of the reasons I haven't been, I suppose, too critical about Jehovah's Witnesses is because, like I said from the beginning, we all agree on that. We all agree on it all being bonkers and ridiculous and stupid nonsense. So I just wanted to look at it from like a what they're doing, and they've obviously done a good job, which is horrible. Actually, it's not a good. I don't mean it in a positive way. The other reason is because I'm aware that there's that old thing of like, you know, you don't want other people criticizing your family. I know that's not your family anymore, of course, but I don't want a lot of people who are watching and are feeling very raw, who have just left and they're not sure how they feel. And I'm this outsider coming in and going, that thing you believe would really, how could you have ever believed that, you bloody idiots? So, you know, you know, and I understand how the mind works. And I can understand how someone might have been drawn into that. So I don't want people to feel like, God, I was stupid for doing that or whatever, because it's so natural and they are so good at that's what I'm trying to say is they are good at what they do. They're good at bringing people in.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Like, my best friend the other day texted me, was like, I've just had a revelation. And I was like, what? She was like, if I believed that there was life after death like Christians do, I'd probably feel better. And I was like, duh. Like, she's been a lifelong atheist, never believed any of it to begin with, and she just now understood that. I'm like, yeah. Did you think that all those people were just idiots or what? Like, what? You really didn't get that until now? And that's what it feels like explaining some of the Jehovah's Witness stuff to people sometimes, is like, how did you ever believe that? It's like, I don't know. They told me that when I was 3. Like, I don't know how I could have believed it.
Really interesting about that, I think, is like that thing. I think most people probably do want to live forever, but I think you'll find, or I found anyway, a surprising amount of people who have no religion or anything. And when I ask them, you know, would you like to live forever? And as I was saying before, I had on my last podcast, I had a guy who thinks we can do it biologically, and you know, it's almost certainly not going to happen, you know, but I like to convince myself and let myself think, okay, I'm not going to die. And I think that the people who then say that they wouldn't, I'm sure even people listening to this now, a lot of the people saying like, oh, no, I wouldn't want to live forever. It's just another kind of cognitive bias. It's either you've got to tell yourself, no, I wouldn't want that anyway, because it would be so terrible, or you might be attracted to a religion because the religions tell you can live forever. It's very hard to be someone who is an atheist and then also somebody who wants to live forever, which I would count myself among that. And that's quite depressing. And you don't want to face that, you know? Who would want to face that? So I wish I could either believe strongly in a religion, as you say, or strongly in the science, which is probably a much better bet than
But I think there are ways of facing it. It's just not necessarily easy to arrive at those ways. Like, you know, facing your mortality is something that confronts everyone who ditches religion and goes through that process of doing away with the supernatural. It's not easy necessarily, but it is possible. One of the most challenging things for me has been explaining mortality to my children. And I can understand why it would be so much easier to say to Jessica when she starts talking about why do people die and when are you going to die and am I going to die? It would be so much easier to say, oh, don't worry about that, darling. No one dies. We all go to heaven. It would be a huge cop-out, but it would also be much easier than being honest to Jessica and saying, we do die, darling, but don't worry, we're alive for a very, very long time, such a long time that we don't need to think about it now. And that's the best you can say.
Wow.
And unfortunately, she keeps coming back and asking that question.
How old is she?
But it's still, she's now 6. But the more she asks that question, the easier it gets to answer it. And
You've got a philosopher in the making.
She's basically asking the question again just to kind of reconcile with the answer. And the older she gets and the more mature she gets, the easier it will be. But I'm telling you this to say, you know, it's not easy necessarily, but it can be done. And
it's interesting what you were saying about, you know, coming out of a religion, you then have to confront your mortality. And I would say to you guys, having grown up not religious at all, aside, I had, you know, little bits of Jewish stuff. I didn't ever believe stuff. That still happens because you, as much as I knew, probably when I was 6, probably when I was 10, 12, I knew that I had my own mortality to think about, that I was going to die or whatever. It doesn't hit you what that means until you have a brain, which is around 15, 16, 17, maybe 18, 20, 21, and it hits you one day, and it hit me like a brick, like a ton of bricks. It was just like, oh, what it actually means. So I think that even if you do teach it to someone who's very young, they might suddenly, you know, and then you do have to sometimes have some cognitive bias about it. I can't go about making a podcast if I'm also thinking, you know, oh, I've got, you know, 50 years left, probably 10 good years of that. And then, you know, it all goes to rubbish after that.
Speaking of your podcast, those who have enjoyed Andrew, despite his failure to demonstrate any knowledge of Hebrew, can check out more of Andrew Gold on his On the Edge podcast, which I thoroughly recommend. Rudy has their channel X Cult Baby, which you should definitely check out. I will be putting links in the description below. Johnny, you have a website. I'll put a link to that in the description below as well, and then anything else you want me to put. But can I just say, what an amazing panel. You've all been an absolute delight, and you have made studying the Bible, studying the Jehovah's Witness interpretation of the Bible, surprisingly fun. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
I think I'm glitching again, am I?
Nope.
No.
You're
No,
just sitting there quiet.
Went quiet.
Well,
Maybe the brain was
Yeah.
after you took in that information.
well, once again, thank you so much for being superb panelists. I really appreciate all that you've shared. And thank you to the hundreds of people who have had 5% of a Jehovah's Witness Bible study on this live stream. Please don't forget to subscribe to the Lloyd Evans channel for more such videos. And as always, thank you for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.